who fought so bravely and in fact turned the tide against the enemy in Italy. And as much as we will commemorate the fallen through reading the Roll of Honor and laying of wreaths, we have to also remember that our Wits Week functions are also a celebration of achievement, celebration on longevity of a fine regiment which is 116 years old on the 1st of May, and a celebration of all those who've served. In the first instance, I'd like to refer to my predecessor as commanding officer, Colonel Dudley Fletcher, a great man, a wonderful guy to follow. Often people said to me, you know, if Dudley said charge, we'd all have charged, never wondering to ask, well, where are we charging to? He was that kind of leader. And he passed away last December, and we were very sad to see him go. His life is a celebration, and we had services for him in Grahamstown, where he was living, or Macondo as it now is, and in Durban. And we said goodbye to our comrade in appropriate and good fashion. So may Dudley rest in peace. Wherever he may be resting, he won't be that idle, and he will be, let's say, stirring things up in the officers' mess in the sky, I have no doubt. So we celebrate his life. We celebrate also the regiment and its forces. Thank you to those on parade today. Always appreciate that you come out on a weekend and put on a good and fine parade. We must also remember that members of this regiment are deployed at the Rand Show. I don't know if that's a very warlike deployment, but nonetheless they're there. And then there is a company up in Limpopo on the border under Operation Corona. And we hope that they are performing well and keeping safe and keeping us safe, as this regiment has always done. So we must celebrate and thank the regiment for what it is doing. And then I want to celebrate the veterans. Sadly today, we do not have any World War II veterans on parade. There are not many of them left in the Wit Rifles and the Wits Array. But we should just remember what they did. But I hate to remind myself that there are some who marched past today, and as I commented to the Brigadier, some of them look a little wobbly. There are people in the Veterans Corps here today that have served this regiment for almost half, if not half, of its 116 years of existence. I know I've reached 55 years of service, and I know Major King, Major Halloran, Major Crindall's not here today. They were already at the regiment when I rocked up in 1965 actually, but I'd started in 1964. So there is a wealth of service and wonderful service and commitment from those veterans, and that they are still here today to support the regiment in large numbers, no matter how their physical being maybe inhibits them from doing so. So thank you to the veterans. I usually raise up issues of major importance to the reserves of South Africa, or the Defence Force and the Army in particular, and I don't have a lot to raise today, not only because I'm no longer the chairman of the Reserve Force Council, but because I'm no longer in touch with everybody all the time. But matters that are near and dear to us all, one is the question of the name changes in the South African Army. 65 units, regiments and units names have been reviewed. They haven't all been changed, but they've been reviewed, and a new list has been promulgated. That list was cleared through the Army Command Council in December 2016. And sad to say, the list has been, I don't know, static or mobile or semi-mobile or oscillating, coming and going in the high quarters of the Defence Force and the ministry since then. But I am informed that the generals want to get the minister to sign the list off, because there's an election coming and she may not be the Minister of Defence after that, in which case the entire program of persuading and discussing and debating the name reviews will have to start all over again. I don't know if that will be achieved, because I do suspect there are political considerations that will follow from the announcement. Because I do know in my moving around, and I'm one of the, if you like to say, I was one of the members of the Army's committee that drew up those changes, that there's a lot of emotion associated with the names of things like regiments. And there's every prospect that when the names are made known, that there are going to be negative reactions from emotional veterans from around the country. So there is a publicity risk, which may in turn become a political risk, which may inhibit the minister from doing what I've just said she might do. So we wait patiently for that event. We know the regiment will change its name to the Witwatersrand Rifles. It's just a question of when and how. And I look forward to that day, because it will restart the regiment on a path into the future, which will be much more appropriate to the demographics and the population makeup of our country than the old names were. For the rest, the Defence Force struggles with a very weak budget. Its availability of funds for anything is constrained in the extreme. And as always, the reserves are on the short end of that situation. That's not going to change. I fought hard to get it to change for nearly 20 years. Didn't get there. But we hope that eventually the reserves will be appropriately resourced to fulfill their jobs. The Defence Review of 2015, which has been now a public document for nearly 4 years, has not been touched from an implementation perspective. I perhaps need not remind you that milestone 1, or the first stage of the recommendations in that review, was entitled Arresting the Decline. There are many facets of the life of the Defence Force. Things have been in decline for a long time, and they need to be changed. And unfortunately, this review was published as the country went into the dark ages, economically speaking. And we're not out of it yet. And to do all what was required is going to cost money. Now, it's interesting to note that the new Minister of Finance announced that he's offering exit packages to civil service servants. I think he mentioned the figure of